guys, it's Michelle. Welcome back to my channel. And today I want to talk about the audiobooks that I read in September. Now, typically audio is my least favorite way to consume books. This may be controversial, but I don't technically see it as reading. Like, it's not the same as like reading a physical book to me. And I feel like listening to it rather than reading it takes away some of the fun for me. However, I have been needing more stuff to listen to. So I'm the type of person that anytime I'm cleaning or anytime that I'm cooking or anytime I'm doing anything where I can't sit down and actually read, I like to listen to stuff. And so normally I'll be listening to podcasts, but there's only so many podcasts. So I've started to listen to audiobooks. I have this subscription to, or I did have a subscription to audiobooks.com, and they give you like VIP credits, which is basically like just a free book every month. So I had some of those. And also Hoopla is really good for audiobooks, especially if you're looking for urban fiction. Hoopla comes in the clutch. They also had a book that I was looking for a book club. And, there are times where, like, you guys know me, like, I pretty much buy bargain books. I don't typically buy like new releases. I get my books from the library, you know what I mean? So there are times when I can't get a hold of a certain book because it's not available at the library, it's not available on Hoopla. Like, I just can't, get my hands on it for free or for a low price. So I'm kind of out of luck at that point. But thankfully, one of the book clubs that I'm in, the book for this month, it was on Hoopla, but only available on audio. So, I just gave in, and I've been listening to all of these different audiobooks. And I have to say that I am enjoying it. It is a good way to get in more books. You only have a certain amount of time in the day. There's only so many books you can read. So listening to them, and especially I'll be listening on like 1.5 to 2 times the speed. So I'm able to like get through audiobooks fairly quickly, and it has like put me ahead in terms of my reading goal. Now again, I feel a ways about that. Like, there's still a certain amount of like actual physical books that I want to read, or ebooks even. I settle for an ebook. So next year I may just like separate my reading goals from like physical to audiobook. But anyways, going into next year, I'm definitely going to lean in more to audiobooks and, just give them a chance. Have something for me to listen to as I'm doing stuff around the house. With that being said, I want to tell you about the audiobooks that I listened to this month. The first one is Promise Broken by Quan. I had never heard of this author before. This is my first time reading from him. It is an urban fiction, and apparently he's like the king of urban fiction. So, that's interesting. The book is about a girl named Promise, and she lives with her aunt and her cousin. Her aunt is like evil, mean. She says really terrible and disgusting things to her. It's giving like Cinderella almost. Her mom died in a car accident, and I think the aunt and her mom had beef, or the aunt was just super jealous of her mom. And so now, she treats her daughter just like she's nothing. She constantly talks down to her and berates her. It's really sad. Promise has two friends, Mouse and Key. Mouse is like her, partner in crime. That's like her best friend. And Mouse's mom is addicted to drugs. She's not around a lot. And she also has like a little sister. So Mouse ends up getting involved in the drug game a little bit in order to, put food on the table and take care of her and her little sister, since her mom is not really, in the picture. And then we have Keys, who his parents are decent, they're around, and they call him Keys because he's very talented on the piano. He also has a crush on Promise. However, Promise has her eyes on this dude named Asher, who is in the drug game. And Asher, he has this girlfriend, and she is just so like controlling. And, she's always, asking him like where he be at and stuff like that. And she does it for a good reason, because he do be cheating on her. But this girlfriend, like, she's just, she's a bitch. We'll just say that. So even though he has a girlfriend, he does have his eyes on Promise as well. And so eventually jealousy gets in there, and that complicates things for Promise and also for Mouse. Overall, I think the story is pretty good. It has all your typical things that you would expect from like urban fiction, especially like young adult or urban fiction, like with the drugs and the backstabbing and jealousy. So I feel like this story has a lot of potential, and the way that the story left off, it has me really interested in what the rest of the series is gonna be like. The second book is already out. It came out in March, and whenever I can get my hands on it, I'll definitely be checking it out. So yeah, I would definitely recommend Promise Broken by Quan. I'm going to give it maybe 3.5. Now this is where, when it comes to audiobooks, I just, there's a difference, right, between the audiobook and the physical book. And I'm not sure if I would have liked this book more if it was physical. I think maybe I would have liked it a little bit more. I'm not sure. You just can never know. But the next book, I actually really, really liked listening. And I think I liked it more listening to it versus if I had actually read it. And that is A Little Kissing Between Friends by Shanika or Shanisa. Shanika C. Higgins. I'm sorry if I totally messed that up. So yeah, like I was saying, like this book genuinely surprised me. I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did, especially the production of it. It was the actors, the voice actors, that really sold it for me. Like they did so good. They did such an amazing job and really made the story entertaining for me, to the point where, like I said, if I had read it physically or on ebook, I don't know if I would have enjoyed it as much. Like I just felt like I was really listening to, a friend talking, or I felt like I was listening to like a TV show, or like an actual production. Like it was produced very well. Now the actual plot was a mess. In a good way. But if you are familiar with the Read podcast, my favorite podcast ever, then there's a segment that they do called Listener Letters. And this story just reminded me of something that somebody wrote in to the Read to get advice on. Like it just was so messy and was so like back and forth, and it was so like it involves two women. It's a sapphic type of romance. One girl is lesbian and the other one is bisexual. So you can imagine like the drama that would ensue when those two who are friends starts to become a little bit more. So that's why like it just reminded me of something that I would hear on the read. If you know, you know. But that's also another reason why I really enjoyed it, because we don't really get a lot of stories like that. You know, this was, I wouldn't call it urban fiction, but it was, you know, very black and also very queer, you know, very lesbian, very bisexual, you know what I mean? So, you know, we don't really get to hear a lot of those types of stories. So I was really glad to be listening to this book on audio. So as far as the characters, we have Sin, who is a music producer. She's a stud and she's really focused on her career, but she also is a little bit of a player. You know, she get women, you know what I'm saying? She also has a big family and a big loving family. In the beginning of the book, she talks a lot about her relationship with her dad. It's very sweet. And I really liked her character in the beginning. I'll say that in the beginning. Everybody knows that she has a thing for her best friend, Juicy, but she tries to like play it off for the longest time. Now, Juicy, she is a dancer and she's also a mom to like a young boy. I'm not sure how old he is. Her and her ex, they co-parent very well. You know, there's no drama there. And her and Sin are just really good friends. She's always looking out for her. She's always like bringing her food, making sure she eats when she's at the studio. She's close with her family. So yeah, they have a tight connection. So one night, you know, they're both kind of out at the club or whatever, and Juicy gets a little bit jealous of this girl that's like hanging around Sin. She tries to play it off, you know, but she has a little bit too much to drink that night. And so Sin takes her back to her place, which they have done many times because they're best friends. However, one thing leads to another, a little kissing between friends, and, you know, things happen. Things get messy, things get awkward. There's some confusion, some denial, some hurt feelings. And yeah, that's kind of how the story goes. So again, I'm glad that I listened to this on audio. I'm sure that I ended up liking it a lot better than if I had actually read the book. There were some parts where I had to like take a break because their drama, their back and forth, it just got to be like too much sometimes. Like I was kind of like over it sometimes. But, you know, once I took my little break, then I was able to like jump back into it and, you know, see how everything turned out. Overall, I really enjoyed my reading experience and I would definitely recommend that you check it out. I think I'm going to give that one 4 stars. 4 stars feels good. Yeah, it was great. Definitely check it out on audio. The last one that I listened to was Who's That Girl? A memoir by Eve. Now, memoirs are an exception. I typically prefer to listen to memoirs on audio versus physical or ebook. Most of the time they are read by the author, and that's just a little more entertaining for me. It's hard reading nonfiction in general, but when you're reading like someone's story, it can just get kind of boring. I don't know if it's because there's no like plot, you know what I mean? And nothing really to keep you invested besides, you know, whatever is going on in that person's life. But it's just hard for me to get through a memoir, actually like reading it. I do eventually like to collect the physical book of the memoir, especially if I liked it, especially if I'm a fan of theirs, just to have for my collection, Maybe one day I'll come across that person and, get them to sign it or whatever. But like I said, I would much rather prefer to listen to it rather than actually read it. Anyways, on to Eve. I love me some Eve. Ever since I was a little girl, I remember being in like second or third grade. Her first album came out on my birthday, and I just remember listening to it like in my little CD player. Of course, a lot of the stuff like I have no idea what I'm listening to, but yeah, I've loved Eve since then. I still listen to some of those songs to this day. So when I heard that she was coming out with a book, I immediately added it to my TBR. I was watching all the interviews that she was doing about it, and I was just so excited to get into it. And then I saw that Hoopla had the audiobook, and the book like literally had just come out. Like it had just come out this month. So when I saw that Hoopla had the audio, I immediately pressed play. Now, to be honest with you, I do feel like a lot of the stuff in the book I had already heard before. And maybe that's typical if you are a fan. I remember listening to Will Smith's book and thinking the same thing, thinking like I'm a fan of his. I've watched his videos, I've watched his interviews. I've kind of heard most of these stories before. So same thing with her. And like I said, like I was watching all of those interviews, and they would bring up the book and they would bring up certain things in the book. So at that point, like, I had heard it before actually listening. It was nice to get some clarity on some things that I personally had been wondering about. One in particular is how her name was left off of that song by The Roots, You Got Me. Yeah. I remember being in college and going through like a deep, like old school hip hop, soul, R&B phase. And I was really getting into Erykah Badu. And so I came across that song. And, as soon as I heard the person rapping, I immediately was like, that's Eve. But I think like there was a lot of confusion on like who is that, and why was she not listed on there? So she explained a little bit, about that and how it kind of affected her, which I enjoyed. She also talked about that show Queens that she was on, and just kind of how it was doomed from the start, which I think a lot of people noticed. I don't think a lot of people liked that show or watched that show. Like maybe the ratings weren't good. However, like I was rooting for it just because I loved seeing Eve on screen again. Like I want more of Eve, and it just seems like when she got married and moved to London and stuff, like I just feel like she kind of left us all behind. Us being like all her fans, like she don't make music no more. Like you just don't see her anymore, and I enjoyed seeing her in that show, and I was rooting for it to last. But obviously it didn't last. She ended up getting pregnant, which I knew these things, but just kind of hearing her retell what was going on behind the scenes and stuff, I appreciated hearing about that. Other than that, I didn't really feel like I learned a lot of stuff about her. I just feel like she could have went a little bit deeper. Like it just felt very surface. It felt very like, here's some things about my life, and put into a book. And I don't know, I just wanted her to go deeper. Maybe, when it comes to actually like being a wife, like she's been away from us for so long, and hasn't been out and hasn't like put much out. So I would have liked to maybe hear a little bit more about you know, what it's like being a wife, maybe more about her love story. She talks about, you know, her and her husband and stuff, and I just would have liked more about that, more about her being a mother. She does talk briefly about how she had an ectopic pregnancy, and you know how her and her husband, it took a while. They went through IVF and you know things like that, but just not something that I can Google. You know, like I want to know deeper, kind of like a almost like a diary. Like that's kind of what I expect from you know books like this. Like if I can Google it, what's the point? You know what I mean? I wanted her to go a little bit deeper. She has a co-author on this, and it shows, you know what I mean? Like I wanted something a little bit more intimate, something that could only come from her. You know what I mean? Overall, it was okay. I gave it 3 stars just because it's Eve. And, you know, I would recommend it if you are a fan of hers. You know, if thing but for the nostalgia, you know, just kind of get your life reminiscing about some of the things that have happened in Eve's career. Just don't expect her to, you know, get too deep into the subjects. So that's it for this video. Let me know if you are an audiobook person or if you prefer physical books like I do. If you are an audiobook person, let me know. Give me some recommendations on what are some really good audiobooks. I'm open. I'm ready to receive, you know, some good stories through audio. So let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a thumbs up if you liked it, and I will catch you guys in the next video.